Nolan had always been fascinated by the idea of staying in unique places, and Erden seemed like the perfect platform to satisfy his wanderlust. One day, while scrolling through the listings, he stumbled upon a charming cottage nestled in the outskirts of a small, quiet town. The pictures showcased a cozy fireplace, vintage furniture, and an overall rustic charm that instantly captivated Nolan's imagination. Excited about the prospect of a peaceful retreat, Nolan quickly booked the cottage for a weekend getaway. As the day of his arrival approached, he couldn't shake off a strange feeling of anticipation, an inexplicable sense of unease that settled in the pit of his stomach. The drive to the town was uneventful, with Nolan navigating narrow roads surrounded by dense woods. When he finally reached the cottage, it appeared exactly as it did in the pictures, quaint and inviting. The host, a woman named Margaret, warmly welcomed Nolan and handed over the keys with a mysterious smile. Night fell quickly, and as Nolan settled in, he noticed peculiar details within the cottage. Antique mirrors seemed to reflect fleeting shadows, and the creaks in the floorboards echoed with an unsettling rhythm. Brushing off these eerie sensations as mere imagination, he decided to explore the nearby town the next day. The locals were friendly, but as Nolan inquired about the cottage, a hushed tension hung in the air. Cryptic warnings and sidelong glances only fueled his curiosity. Determined to uncover the mystery, Nolan delved into the town's history and stumbled upon a chilling tale. The cottage was rumored to be haunted by the spirit of a former resident who met a tragic end. Undeterred by superstitions, Nolan returned to the cottage, determined to spend the night. As the clock struck midnight, strange occurrences unfolded. Whispers echoed through the corridors. Doors creaked open on their own, and the temperature dropped dramatically. Terrified but resolute, Nolan confronted the supernatural, determined to unravel the truth. The following day, Nolan's curiosity intensified. He delved deeper into the history of the cottage, uncovering a web of secrets that intertwined with the town's darkest chapters. The former resident, a woman named Eleanor, was said to have disappeared under mysterious circumstances decades ago. Intrigued and haunted by the ghostly encounters, Nolan decided to reach out to the townspeople for more information. The locals, though initially hesitant, began to open up about Eleanor's tragic fate. They spoke of a forbidden love, betrayal, and a vengeful spirit seeking closure. As Nolan continued his investigation, the paranormal activity within the cottage escalated. Shadows danced in the corners of his vision, and ghostly apparitions materialized in the dead of night. Despite the growing terror, Nolan pressed on, driven by an insatiable desire to uncover the truth. One evening, as a storm raged outside, Nolan stumbled upon a hidden compartment in the cottage, a dusty old journal belonging to Eleanor. The pages chronicled a heartbreaking tale of love and betrayal, painting a vivid picture of the events leading to her disappearance. Nolan realized that Eleanor's spirit was trapped, unable to find peace until her story was told. Armed with this newfound knowledge, Nolan embarked on a journey to piece together the puzzle of Eleanor's life. Guided by the ghostly manifestations, he retraced her steps and uncovered long-buried secrets. The town, once hesitant to share its dark history, now embraced Nolan as a conduit for Eleanor's voice. As Nolan worked tirelessly to unravel the mystery, the paranormal activity began to subside. The once hostile spirits seemed to acknowledge his efforts. With each revelation, Eleanor's ethereal presence became less ominous, and the cottage transformed from a place of fear to one of sorrowful remembrance. The final pieces of the puzzle fell into place, allowing Nolan to recount Eleanor's tragic tale to the town. As the words left his lips, the lingering energy of the past dissipated, and the cottage embraced a newfound serenity. Eleanor's spirit, finally at peace, faded away, leaving behind a profound sense of closure. Nolan, having played the unexpected role of a paranormal investigator, bid farewell to the town and the cottage. As he drove away, he couldn't help but feel a mixture of relief and melancholy. The Airbnb experience had transcended the ordinary, taking him on a journey into the realms of mystery history, and the supernatural. It was a chilly autumn evening when Robert, an avid traveler, decided to embark on a solo adventure to a quaint town nestled in the heart of the countryside. Seeking a unique experience, he turned to Airbnb to find accommodation that would offer more than just a place to sleep. After hours of scrolling through listings, Robert stumbled upon a charming cottage with a history dating back to the 18th century. The photos showcased a rustic interior, complete with creaky wooden floors and antique furniture. The description promised an immersive experience in the town's rich history, making it an ideal choice for someone like Robert, who relished the idea of living like a local. Upon arrival, Robert was captivated by the cottage's charm. It was even more enchanting than the pictures suggested. The host, a friendly elderly woman named Margaret, greeted him warmly. She handed him the keys and shared stories about the cottage's past occupants, adding an eerie undertone to the history. As the night settled in, Robert unpacked and settled into the antique four-poster bed. The wind outside howled, creating an eerie ambience that sent shivers down his spine. Despite the unsettling atmosphere, Robert convinced himself it was merely the charm of an old building. Little did he know that the cottage held secrets that would soon unravel, turning his stay into a chilling tale. The second night in the cottage took an unexpected turn. Robert awoke to the sound of footsteps echoing through the narrow hallway. His heart raced as he followed the noise, only to find the corridor empty. The flickering candlelight cast shadows that danced on the peeling wallpaper, creating an illusion of movement. Determined to dismiss his unease as mere imagination, Robert decided to explore the town during the day. Yet, everywhere he went, locals seemed hesitant to discuss the cottage's history. Whispers of tragedies and mysterious occurrences lingered in the air, leaving him on edge. As the days passed, Robert's unease intensified. Strange occurrences became a nightly routine. Doors creaking open, whispers in the dark, and an unshakable feeling of being watched. He began to doubt his sanity, questioning whether the stories Margaret had shared were more than just tales of the past. One evening, while reading the town's history at a local library, Robert stumbled upon an old newspaper article. It detailed a series of unexplained disappearances that had taken place in the cottage over the centuries. Each account mirrored the eerie events he had been experiencing. Determined to uncover the truth, Robert delved deeper into the town's archives. He discovered that Margaret, his seemingly benign host, had been the common thread in many of these disappearances. The chilling realization dawned on him that the cottage was not just a witness to history, but an active participant in a macabre tale. Fear gripped Robert as he confronted Margaret about the sinister past of the cottage. Her eyes darkened, and a malevolent smile played on her lips. The walls seemed to close in around him as Margaret whispered, "You were never meant to leave." The encounter with Margaret left Robert paralyzed with fear. As he tried to leave the cottage, the door slammed shut, trapping him inside. Shadows twisted and contorted in the corners of the room, and an otherworldly chill permeated the air. Margaret's once friendly demeanor transformed into a sinister glare as she uttered cryptic incantations, invoking a force beyond comprehension. Desperation set in as Robert realized he was entangled in a dark force that had claimed countless souls before him. The walls seemed to close in, and the air became thick with malevolence. In a desperate attempt to break free, he sought refuge in the town's church, believing that the sanctity of the place would shield him from the ominous powers at play. As Robert entered the church, the oppressive atmosphere outside loosened its grip. The sacred ground provided a temporary reprieve from the haunting forces that had ensnared him. Seeking guidance, he approached the parish priest, Father Thomas, who had served the town for decades. Father Thomas, well acquainted with the town's dark history, revealed that the cottage had long been associated with supernatural occurrences. Legends spoke of a malevolent entity that preyed on the souls of those who dared to stay within its walls. Margaret, once a victim herself, had willingly become a vessel for this dark force, luring unsuspecting guests to feed its insatiable hunger. Determined to break the curse that bound him, Robert and Father Thomas delved into ancient texts and local lore, searching for a way to sever the connection between Margaret and the malevolent entity. The answer lay in a forgotten ritual that required courage, sacrifice, and a deep understanding of the forces at play. As the clock ticked and the night of the ritual drew near, Robert prepared himself for a confrontation with the supernatural. He knew that breaking free from the clutches of the cottage required facing the darkness head-on, even if it meant risking his own life. The night of the ritual arrived, and Robert, guided by Father Thomas, stood before the cottage, armed with ancient incantations and symbols etched on parchment. The air crackled with an unsettling energy, and the ominous presence of the malevolent entity grew stronger. Margaret emerged from the shadows, her eyes now hollow voids of darkness, embodying the vessel for the ancient force that sought to consume all who crossed its path. As the ritual unfolded, a battle of wills ensued between the sacred and the profane. The air vibrated with an otherworldly power, and the ground beneath them trembled as if resisting the impending clash. Father Thomas recited the incantations with unwavering conviction, while Robert confronted Margaret, urging her to resist the malevolent force that had claimed her soul. The ancient symbols glowed, enveloping the cottage in a protective barrier that pushed back the darkness. Margaret's struggle became evident as moments of clarity flickered in her eyes. With each incantation, the malevolent entity weakened, its grip on her soul loosening. Just as victory seemed within reach, a deafening roar echoed through the night. The malevolent force fought back with a ferocity that shook the very foundations of the cottage. Shadows writhed and contorted, threatening to engulf them all. The ritual had become a high-stakes battle for not only Robert's life, but the salvation of Margaret's tormented soul. In a final desperate effort, Robert appealed to Margaret's humanity, reminding her of the life she had lost and the countless souls she had unwittingly condemned. A flicker of recognition passed through her eyes, and the force resisting the ritual waned. Margaret, with a strength born from within, embraced the light that had eluded her for centuries. As the malevolent force retreated, the cottage shuddered, and a deafening silence settled. The ancient ritual had succeeded in severing the connection, freeing Margaret from the clutches of darkness. The cottage, once a haven for malevolence, now stood silent, its secrets laid bare. Margaret, now freed from the curse, thanked Robert and Father Thomas for delivering her from the abyss. The town, once shrouded in an aura of fear, began to heal as the malevolent entity's influence waned. The haunted history of the cottage would be remembered, but its dark legacy had come to an end.